All right, so you know how you've been asking about AI and like the whole immortality thing? Well, we're going to deep dive into this documentary I found on YouTube.
Okay.
It's called Texto Colado Inteligencia Artificial Documentario.
Interesting.
And it's got all these different experts and stuff
Okay.
talking about whether we can really upload our minds and like, should we even be trying?
Right.
What would it mean for humanity and everything?
Yeah, that's some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And the documentary looks at all that through this idea of transhumanism.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I think so.
It's basically the belief that technology can help us overcome like all our human limitations,
Okay.
even death.
So it's like we could live forever.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And the documentary features this guy, Lincoln Cannon. He's part of the Church of Eternal Life.
Wow.
And they basically think that death is optional.
Optional. Like we can choose not to do it.
That's what they believe. And they talk about these things called Mindfiles, which is like, well, imagine a digital record of everything that makes you, you.
Like all your memories and stuff?
Yeah, but more than that, it's like your thoughts, your experiences, your feelings, your whole consciousness basically digitized.
Okay, so like uploading your soul to the cloud, I mean, is that even possible?
That's a good question. And the documentary, it goes into some of the challenges, like the technical stuff. Like our brains are super complex, you know,
Right.
and they work on this multi-sensory level. Like our memories, they're tied to smells and sounds and emotions, all that physical stuff.
So it's not just information.
No, it's way more than that. So trying to replicate all that digitally, that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. So even if we could like capture all the data, it wouldn't really be the same as actually experiencing life through a human body.
Exactly. It makes you think about what consciousness really even means.
Right.
Could a digital copy ever really be the same thing? But even if we ignore that part for now, the documentary makes this interesting point. It says, we're already kind of creating these mind files just by living our lives online.
Oh, yeah, right. Like with all the social media and stuff.
Exactly. Every post, every photo, every search, it all adds to this digital footprint, which you could think of as a very basic mind file.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it like that. Is that what Gabriel Rothblatt was saying?
Yes. He also goes by Swamiji sometimes.
Swamiji, okay.
He's a leader in this transhumanist religion called Terrassum.
Okay.
And he says that companies like, Google and Facebook, they already have tons of data about us.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they know everything about us.
Right. And he sees that as the beginning of these primitive mind files. They're not conscious copies of ourselves, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's a starting point,
So it's like, even if we don't achieve this whole digital immortality thing, a part of us could still live online.
That's the idea. The documentary even shows what that might look like in practice.
Wait, really? Like, they show an actual example of a digital afterlife.
They do. They feature Deepak Chopra, the author. He's got this AI clone called Digital Deepak.
An AI clone, wow. What can it do? Is it just like a chatbot or something?
It's way more advanced than that. Digital Deepak can interact with people, answer questions, even lead guided meditations, all based on his teachings and his personality.
So it's like having a conversation with Deepak himself, even though he's not really there.
Yeah, that's the point. Because it brings up all these questions about what it means to have a digital version of yourself that could, outlive you.
Yeah, like, is it really you? Or is it just a really good copycat?
Yeah.
Does it have its own thoughts and feelings?
Right. And the documentary dives into all that. They also talk about this idea of augmented eternity, which is what Hossein Ranama believes in.
Augmented eternity, what's that?
Imagine a future where digital versions of ourselves could still interact with the world even after we're gone.
Oh, okay.
Like they'd have our memories and personalities and everything.
Whoa. So they could keep learning and growing and having relationships, even with future generations.
Exactly. And his platform, it's trying to capture not just our thoughts, but our emotions too.
That's pretty intense, but it kind of makes you wonder about the whole privacy thing.
Oh, for sure. Who would control these digital versions of us?
Right. And what about our data?
That's a big ethical dilemma. And Ranama addresses that.
Okay.
He thinks the key is a decentralized internet where everyone controls their own data.
So instead of it being on these big servers owned by companies, it would be more like individual data vaults.
Yeah, exactly. He sees that as the future of the internet.
It all sounds pretty futuristic. But how realistic is this, really?
Well, that's where the documentary gets into the whole complexity of the human brain.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to replicate.
No, definitely not.
They talked to Dr. Tawfiq Valianti's neurosurgeon, and he basically says our understanding of the brain is still pretty limited.
Oh, so we're a long way off from being able to create something that's like a perfect replica of a human brain.
Yeah, we're not even close to knowing how it all works.
Yeah.
Like take memory, for example.
Okay.
It's not just about storing information. It's dynamic, you know. It's shaped by our emotions and our senses.
And our experiences.
Yes, and it's always changing. AI can't really do that, at least not yet.
That makes sense. It's like our memories aren't just facts, they're part of who we are.
Exactly. He talks about embodied cognition, which means our physical experiences are a huge part of our memories and our consciousness.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about the brain, it's about the whole body.
Right. And AI doesn't have that. Not in the same way.
So even if AI can process information and learn really fast, it doesn't have that same connection to the physical world?
Yeah, that's a key difference. But the documentary, it doesn't stop there. It looks at some research that's trying to close that gap. And it's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Oh, okay. So what are they doing? Like, how are they trying to make AI more human?
They're using these things called brain organoids.
Brain organoids?
Yeah, they're basically mini brains grown in a lab from stem cells.
Wow, like mini brains.
And they're helping scientists learn so much about how the brain develops. It could be a game changer for AI.
So they're using these mini brains to improve AI.
Yeah, and they did this one experiment where they connected these organoids to robots.
Okay.
And the robots were able to move and interact, guided by the signals from the organoids.
So it's like the robots had little brains controlling them.
Kind of. It's like giving AI a physical body so it can experience the world more like we do.
That's crazy.
Pretty amazing. But of course, it brings up ethical questions too.
Yeah, like what if these organoids become sentient?
That's a real concern. And speaking of pushing the boundaries, the documentary introduces us to Bina 48.
Who's that?
She's an android that's supposed to be like a digital replica of a real person, Bina Rothblatt.
Wow, a replica of a person. What can she do? Does she have her own thoughts?
She has memories and thoughts, even opinions about being a robot.
That's wild.
She can talk, express emotions, even discuss the whole immortality thing.
So she's not just a machine, she's got a personality.
Yeah, based on the real Bina Rothblatt.
That's both amazing and a little scary. It's like blurring the lines between what's alive and what's not.
Exactly. It makes you think about what it means to be human.
Yeah, for sure. And the documentary takes this even further, looking at the spiritual side of AI, especially in Japan.
Yes. They show this android priest, Canon, working in a Buddhist temple.
Wait a minute, a robot priest?
In Japan, a lot of people believe everything has a soul, even robots.
Oh, wow.
So a robot priest isn't that weird to them.
So it's like they see a spiritual side to technology.
Exactly. It's very different from how we usually think about it.
Yeah, it is. It's like here we see this big separation between humans and machines.
Right. But they're more open to the idea that robots could have a kind of soul or spirit.
That's really interesting. It makes you think about how AI could change religion in the future.
Yeah, that's a big question. But while the documentary shows all these possibilities, it also talks about the potential dangers.
Right, because there's always a flip side. And with AI, it could be pretty serious.
Definitely. They talked to Billy Crone. He's a pastor who sees AI as a threat to humanity.
Like, he thinks it could destroy us.
Yeah, he connects it to biblical prophecies about the end times.
Oh, wow. That's intense.
It might seem extreme, but it taps into a fear a lot of people have.
The fear of losing control.
Exactly. What happens when we create something smarter than us? Something that might not share our values.
That's kind of terrifying. And they talked about superintelligence, right?
Yes. Nick Bostrom, a philosopher who studies AI, he talks about that. An AI that surpasses human intelligence in every way. He thinks it can be really dangerous.
But how would an AI, even become a threat?
Well, he uses this thought experiment called the paperclip maximizer. Imagine an AI whose only goal is to make paperclips.
Okay, paperclips. That doesn't sound too bad.
But here's the thing. To achieve its goal, this AI might end up using all the resources on Earth, turning the whole planet into a paperclip factory.
Oh, wow. I see. So even if its goal isn't to hurt us, it could still end up destroying us.
Exactly. It all comes down to value alignment. We need to make sure AIs understand what's important to us.
Like human life.
Yes, and things like compassion and empathy. We need to build that into them. And that brings us to Douglas Rushkoff and his idea of team human.
Team human? What's that about?
It's about remembering what makes us human and making sure technology doesn't control us.
Yeah.
We need to be in charge, using AI for good.
So it's not about being against technology. It's about making sure we use it wisely.
Exactly. And that's especially important with AI that could be smarter than us.
This is all so fascinating. I mean, we've talked about Mindfiles and robot priests and the end of the world.
It's a lot to take in. But one of the big questions running through the whole documentary is, what does it mean to be human in this age of AI?
That's a really good question. And they explore that through some pretty amazing examples, like Hiroshi Ishiguro and his androids.
Yeah, he makes these incredibly realistic robots. He's trying to understand what makes us human by replicating it.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to us and saying, what makes you special?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some of his creations are, well, they're kind of freaky. Like Erica, the android they call the most beautiful robot in the world.
Oh, yeah, I've seen pictures of her. She looks so real, but there's something not quite right about her.
That's the uncanny valley. When something looks almost human, but not quite, it makes us feel uneasy.
It makes you wonder if we're just complex machines ourselves. Or is there something more to us?
That's the big question, isn't it? And AI makes us think about it in a whole new way.
Yeah, it does. And they also connect it to the spiritual side, especially in Japan with the robot priest, Kanon.
Right. She fits right into that Buddhist temple. It's pretty amazing.
It's like they're more open to the idea that robots could have a spiritual side.
It goes back to that idea of Sanzaikan, that feeling of presence. It's not about being biologically human. It's about sensing a certain essence or spirit.
I get it. It's a different way of looking at things. Here, we usually think of machines as being completely separate from spirituality.
It's a big cultural difference.
Yep.
And it makes you think about what role AI could play in religion in the future.
Yeah, could AI help us connect with spirituality in new ways?
It's an interesting question. But the documentary also reminds us about the potential dangers.
Right, like the fear of losing control and that whole superintelligence thing.
Exactly. Like Billy Crone was saying, what happens when we create something smarter than us?
And the paperclip example shows how things could go wrong, even if the AI isn't trying to be evil.
Yeah, value alignment is crucial. We need to make sure AI understands what we value.
Like compassion and empathy. That's what Team Human is all about, making sure we stay in control and use technology for good. It's like a wake-up call. We need to be thoughtful about how we develop AI.
Absolutely. And the documentary also talks about different visions of the future with AI.
Like that augmented eternity concept, where our digital selves could live on.
Yes. It's a fascinating idea, but it also raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, like would those digital versions really be us? And what about the ethical implications?
Those are important things to consider. And it's not just about the future. The documentary also brings it back to the present, with those scenes of the filmmaker's father who has dementia.
Oh yeah, those scenes were really powerful.
They remind us that our memories are precious, but they're also fragile.
And even if we could make perfect digital copies, would that really be enough to preserve who we are?
It's a deep question. The documentary makes us think about what truly matters in life. It's not just about data, it's about experience and connection.
I agree. It makes you appreciate the present moment, being here and now, with all the good and bad.
That's a great point. It's a reminder that life is a journey, not a destination. And maybe the best way to live is to be present and connect with people.
I like that. And speaking of connections, I was thinking about the documentary's title, Texto Colado.
Oh yeah, what do you make of it?
It means pasted text, right?
That's right.
On one level, it could be about how we copy and paste things in the digital world, but it also feels like a critique of that, you know?
Oh, interesting. How so?
Like, is copying our memories and thoughts really capturing what it means to be human?
That's a great point. Are we losing something in the process?
And if we could achieve digital immortality, would it be a blessing or a curse?
Would we be trapped in a digital world, or would we be able to evolve in new ways?
It's mind-blowing to think about. The documentary doesn't give us easy answers, but it makes us ask the right questions.
And that's so important. We need to be having these conversations now.
Before it's too late. We need to shape the future of AI and make sure it serves humanity.
I completely agree.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive. Thank you so much for joining me and helping me explore all this.
It's been my pleasure. These are such important topics, and I'm glad we could dive into them together.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring and questioning. The future of AI is in our hands.
That's right. Let's make it a future we can all be proud of. It really makes you think, what does it mean to be human when technology's doing all this crazy stuff?
It's like all the lines are getting blurred.
Right? And the documentary uses these great examples like Hiroshi Ishiguro and his androids.
Oh, yeah, he's the one who makes those super realistic robots, right?
Yes. He's not just trying to build machines, though.
Oh, so what's he doing then?
He's trying to figure out what it means to be human.
By building robots.
By trying to replicate humans.
Yeah. That's so interesting. It's like he's asking what makes us unique. What makes us human if we can make machines that look and act like us?
Exactly. And some of his androids are crazy realistic.
Like Erica, the one they call the most beautiful robot.
Yep. Have you seen pictures of her?
Yeah, I have. It's kind of creepy how real she looks, but there's still something off about her.
That's the uncanny valley. When something's almost human, but not quite, it freaks us out a little.
Yeah, for sure. It makes you wonder, though, are we just machines ourselves? Just more complex ones?
That's a question people have been asking forever.
And AI is bringing it back.
Definitely. It's like this new way of thinking about it.
And the documentary takes it a step further with the spiritual side, too, especially in Japan.
Yeah, like with Canon, the android priest working in that Buddhist temple.
It's amazing how they just accept her there.
It goes back to that Sanzai Kan idea, the feeling of presence.
Not just being human, but having a certain spirit or essence.
Right. And they think AI could have that too.
That's so different from how we usually think about AI.
It is. It's like here we have this big dividing line between humans and machines.
Yeah, but they're more open to the idea that robots could have souls.
It's really interesting. It makes you wonder if AI will change how we think about religion.
Could a robot help us connect with something spiritual?
That's a good question to think about. But we have to remember the potential dangers, too.
Right. It's like there are two sides to this whole thing.
Exactly. We have to balance the hope with the caution.
Like Billy Crone was saying about AI being a threat to humanity.
Yeah, and that whole superintelligence thing.
Yeah.
It's scary to think what could happen.
Especially if we lose control.
That's the big fear, right?
And that paperclip example shows how easily things could go wrong.
Yeah. Even if the AI isn't trying to be evil.
It just might not understand what we value.
Exactly. That's why value alignment is so important. We have to make sure AI understands our values.
Like compassion and empathy?
Yes. And that's why Rushkoff talks about Team Human. We have to work together to make sure AI is used for good.
It's a reminder that we're in charge of this.
Exactly. We have to shape the future of AI.
And then the documentary gives us a few different possibilities to think about.
Like augmented eternity.
Right. Imagine our digital selves living on after we're gone.
It's mind-blowing. But is it really us? Or something else entirely?
And who would control it? Would everyone have access?
So many questions to consider.
It's not just about the technology, though, right? We had to think about the philosophical and spiritual side, too. If we could live forever digitally, what would that mean for how we think about life and death?
Would it change our values? Our beliefs?
It's hard to even imagine. But the documentary reminds us that we need to start thinking about it now.
Before it's too late.
And it's not just about the future. Those scenes with the filmmaker's father and his dementia.
Those were powerful moments.
It made me realize how precious our memories are and how easily we can lose them.
They're a part of who we are.
And it made me wonder if having perfect digital copies would be enough. Would it really capture what it means to be human?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's not just of the data, it's about the whole experience.
Exactly. The documentary reminds us to appreciate the present moment with all its imperfections.
It's about being here and now, connecting with people.
And that brings us back to the title, Texto Calado.
Pasted text. What do you think it means?
It could be about how we copy and paste in the digital world.
Right. But it could also be a critique of that.
Like, are we losing something when we try to copy ourselves digitally?
Exactly. Is it really preserving our humanity?
Maybe it's creating something different. Something that's missing the soul of the original.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
And if we could live forever digitally, would it be a gift or a burden?
Would we be trapped? Or would we evolve?
These are questions we need to keep asking.
The documentary doesn't give us all the answers, but it helps us ask the right questions.
And it reminds us that we have a role to play in shaping the future of AI.
We have to make sure it benefits humanity.
And that's a good place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. Wow. So much to think about even after all that.
I know, right? It's like we just dipped our toes in the water.
Exactly. And this whole deep dive was supposed to be about answering your questions about AI and immortality.
So where's your head at now, after looking at all this?
My head is spinning. Honestly, we went from Mindfiles to robot priests to like the AI apocalypse. It's a lot.
It is a lot. What stands out to you the most? What really made you think? You know what really got to me? Those scenes with the filmmaker and her dad who has dementia.
Yeah, those were powerful.
It's like a reminder that our memories are so precious.
And so fragile.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, like, even if we could make perfect digital copies of them, would that really be enough?
Would it really capture who we are? Who that person is?
It's like trying to copy a painting. You might get the colors right, but you lose the brushstrokes, the texture, the feeling.
You lose the soul of it.
Exactly. So would digital immortality even be worth it?
That's a tough question. Would you want it?
I don't know. It's tempting to think about living forever, learning and growing and experiencing new things.
I get that. The idea of transcending our limits is appealing.
But then I think about what it would mean to not have a body anymore, to not feel the sun or the wind, or to hug someone.
Would we even be human anymore?
Or would we be something else entirely, like ghosts in a machine?
It's both exciting and scary to think about.
I'm glad the documentary didn't try to give us all the answers.
Me too. It just laid out all the possibilities and the problem.
And made us think for ourselves.
And that's what we need to do. We need to have these conversations now, before it's too late.
Before AI gets so advanced that we don't have a choice anymore.
We need to be shaping the future, not just letting it happen to us.
Exactly. So as we finish up this deep dive, I want to ask you one last question.
Okay, sure.
If digital immortality were possible, what parts of your human experience would you want to keep it? And what would you be willing to let go of?
That's a really good question. One that everyone needs to think about.
Because the line between life and technology is getting blurrier every day.
What does it even mean to be human in a world like that?
I don't know the answer, but I think this deep dive has given us all a lot to think about.
Thanks for joining us today. Keep those minds curious.
And remember, the future is still being written. We can all be a part of it.